So this is the eighth film in the long-running Mission Impossible series, which started in 1996. 29 years of this series. This is the follow-up to Dead Reckoning, which was the previous film. It's very complicated, so I'm going to try to keep the plot simple enough. There is this AI called the Entity, this all-knowing thing that wants to either enslave the human race or destroy it through nuclear annihilation. These are your two options. The Mission Impossible force, led by Ethan Hunt, needs to try and stop this, of course. There are then a series of we got to get to this guy to stop this guy to do this thing. It gets very video gamey, but that's what we're doing. We got to stop the Entity and anyone working for that. We got the team back together. Ving Rhames as Luther, Simon Pegg as Benji, some newcomers, and Hayley Atwell's Grace, who we first met in the previous film. Pom Klementieff, who is she was the bad guy, or she was on the bad guys team in the last film. Now she's on the good guys team. Bunch of who's who of, hey, I know that guy kind of actors, such as Tramell Tillman, Hannah Waddingham.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Nick Offerman, Holt McCallany, Henry Cherney. Lots of stars from the past franchises. Like I said, they're going out big because this is allegedly the final Mission Impossible film for possibly business reasons. Paramount Skydance might be getting new owners, and so I think Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise kind of just wanted to get this out and done before it changes ownership. But the team has to work together, do a number of things, including going down to an old Soviet submarine to get a thing to bring it to this guy so he can do this thing in order to stop the Entity. And I don't have to get too specific with all that because you know that it involves a lot of stunts. There's a big submarine set piece, a biplane thing that we've seen all in the trailers. It's very long. It's nearly 3 hours. Zach, what'd you think?
So I said at the top of the show that Andy knows a lot more about the Mission Impossible series than I do. I missed a couple of them along the way. The events of them blur together. I don't really remember how they all go together. I think I've seen most of them. Maybe I've missed one or two. So coming into this one off Dead Reckoning, I'm not nearly as like excited about the hype of the franchise or like that I seem to be reading on Twitter, and like seeing reviews for Mission Impossible Final Reckoning was weird because I saw a lot of people be like, I didn't like it, 5 stars, I'll always stand Mission Impossible, or like, it's got problems, 5 stars, I love these movies anyway. And I'm like, okay, hold on, what are we doing here? What are we just giving 5 stars because we're Fairweather fans? Like, we can't be doing that. That's not right. Like, I want to talk about the substance of this thing. All right, is it any good? Is it overstuffed? Does it manage to accomplish everything it's supposed to do? And most importantly, is this truly the final reckoning? And I'm going to be honest, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I did. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm genuinely impressed by the editing in this picture. It probably deserves an Academy Award. I can't believe how much is here and how it's all put together and how snappy it moves. But also, dude, like, you might have heard already, the first hour is a little overstuffed with exposition, and it is, dog. And then, like, after it gets through all of it, all the lore and all the important stuff, it is action, jam-packed to the wall, hold on to your seat, you only got to pay for the edge. Incredible. Tons of fun, and a fantastic send-off. It really is. I really did like it. But also, it is not above criticism, and I think it's bogus for people to be like, I think this series is great, and I'll give it 5 stars no matter what. Like, that's ridiculous. Come on. So what do you think, Andy? Like, you know this series better than I do. What, am I crazy?
Let's start with our plot, which this was originally supposed to be 2 movies, part 1 and 2, Dead Reckoning part 1 and 2, and then they got delayed. Dead Reckoning didn't perform as well. I think the strikes also affected it. So they decided to kind of just make a separate movie, but what clearly happened is they have to film a new beginning, basically, because if it were part 1 and 2, you would just start probably at the submarine section. Instead, you have like nearly 90 minutes of a whole lot of yapping. Well, I've been calling it the final yappening because there's just so much talking. There's so much talking, and it's a lot of, and they do this. They do this in all the Mission Impossible movies when they're talking about whatever plan they have to execute. They talk through the whole thing, and this ends up happening like 4 or 5 times. It's just so much talking, so much backstory. Also introducing some new players, which sucks because it seems like oh, you're introducing some new cool people to the team, like Pom Klementieff, who funny enough plays the comedic relief in this, despite being like the assassin, is a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And it's like, oh, she'd be a great member of the Mission Impossible team. But this is the last movie, so I guess we're not going to see her again. But it just takes so long to get going. Like it's fine once you get to the submarine, but it takes like 90 minutes to get there.
It also, like, performance-wise, almost a distracting number of AAA cameos. Like, there's a couple scenes with Nick Offerman and Holt McCallany where I'm just like, I can't see these characters. They're just these actors are all on set together. And, like, God, Angela Bassett's great, and like Tramell Tillman steals his scenes, in my opinion. He's fantastic from Severance. Hannah Waddingham's in here. Like, many of these people don't even get that much screen time. And from what I hear of Mission Impossible shoots, they travel all over the world. They take like over a year. Rebecca Ferguson has talked about this in interviews. She's like, I can't say that attached to the series because I got to do other work. Like, I cannot just be on call to go do Mission Impossible for 3 months out of the middle of nowhere. You know, Tom Cruise can, he can be through all of this, but like these other people kind of come and go in the film, and it's enjoyable for sure. But also, I noticed this like occasional, what's the nice way to say is, like a rise or maybe like a bit of noise out of the audience when they see somebody they like, or like get excited for something. It gives this movie, the movie, this funny sense of like, there's little spikes of dopamine for people who recognize some of their favorite actors and actresses. And that's good, I think, because it helps that hour of exposition. It helps that big chunky like open by seeing somebody you like, or even somebody you've seen previously from series, which this movie does a lot. Probably more than any of the others. Like, references past entries, a ton of it. Like, plays old flashback footage, shows you a different view of something you hadn't seen before, shows you a character that was in there previously. Like, in that way, it does a really good job of making it feel like a send-off, because it's like you got to see all of these events that led up to this moment, you know, and like trying to weave it together is clumsy, but also feels really rewarding because it just feels so big. Like, it really does feel like this is the biggest mission Ethan Hunt's ever had to do. Not easy to do after 8 films? Like, crazy.
Someone pointed out that there's a lot of TV stars, but not movie stars in this, and that's what people like Nick Offerman, Holt McCallany, Hannah Waddingham, like, these are big people that you recognize from TV, but we're kind of missing the movie stars. We're missing Rebecca Ferguson, number one, Vanessa Kirby, who she was in the previous 2 films, but also she shot stuff for this film, and they just completely got cut. So we're missing a lot of other bigger players, and like Zach said, it gives us those dopamine hits, and we're like, ooh, someone we recognize. But then there's so many of them, they don't get a whole lot of screen time or a whole lot of lines. And a lot of times when you would see a new famous face in a Mission Impossible movie, they might stick around for 2 or 3 films. And now you just have a whole bunch of people in here, a little bit of key jangling, and it's just they're all underused is what it ends up being.
Yeah, like even my favorites in there don't have enough time. Like, I wish the movie would come back to them, or that Ethan Hunt would spend more time with them, but he's got too much to do in this movie, and it's apparent. I think Cruise has a funny problem with the script too. Obviously, Tom Cruise is great. I'm not going to say Tom Cruise isn't great. But dude, Ethan Hunt's words are so triple, quadruple loaded in this movie. Everything he says is like prophetic, or he knows something 9 people don't, and everybody's getting the conclusion just after Ethan Hunt already gets there. And it always feels like he's a step ahead of the audience. I know that's part of the bit, but like it's tough, dude. On top of the stunts and everything else he's got to do, like, truly puts the whole movie on his back. It's crazy. Also, Hayley Atwell's a lot of fun. Great to see Simon Pegg again. Haven't seen him in a movie in a minute. Pom Klementieff's really fun. I laughed almost every time Ving Rhames was on screen, which I shouldn't do because he's so obviously not supposed to be comedic relief. But I've been hammering him on sitting down a lot of his movies. he sits down plenty in this one. There's times he's reclining, like, which killed me. Like, so it's stupid. Like, Ving Rhames is great. He calls Tom Cruise brother 4 or 5 times in the movie, which I was like, all right, cool. We're all right, awesome. Like, it's a good time.
So once we get over the complicated plot and a lot of people we recognize from other shows and TV, then we finally get to our action sense. There's a big submarine thing because there's a thing in this sunken submarine in the bottom of the Baltic Sea. Who knows where? There is a really good sequence where Tom Cruise jumps out of a plane, helicopter, something into the ocean, which is a really pretty awesome scene. And then things pick up there, and then there's a long submarine sequence where he has to go into this sunken sub to retrieve a thing before moving on to the next. And that's one of the big sequences. We see that in the trailers. So it's not a spoiler. It's super cool, and it's probably one of the most complicated things to film. He's underwater for a lot of it. He had to wear like a special suit. I'm sure it's complicated to film. That's what Christopher McQuarrie said was the most difficult thing to film. But man, it goes on too long. Like the sub thing is cool, and then after like 8 minutes, you're like, okay, can we move on?
Yeah, there's this problem in these movies where they kind of give the big stunts away. Because they have to advertise, right? And like usually there's only 2 or 3 real big ones. So like you kind of see them in the trailer. So like we had an idea going in. There's going to be 2 things you're going to see here. A little bit of submarine stuff and some biplane action, which we'll get to in a second. I thought the submarine stuff was really cool because I, watch a lot of movies and do a movie podcast, and I know filming underwater is a freaking nightmare. There's a whole documentary about James Cameron filming The Abyss and going crazy on set. Like it's awful, dude. And it's like a really long sequence of like multiple bits, like getting out of the submarine into this thing and then like getting pushed, swimming down, getting in, like all kinds of stuff. Like, and there's this like a rotating thing with a rotating set, which is crazy, like totally cool. But yeah, dude, there are people in my audience getting their phones out. They're like, all right, like, where is this going to go? Because filming underwater is slow and dark and often enhanced with CGI. And I think audiences like do not go for it the way they do with the biplane stuff, which is genuinely incredible and worth talking about a little bit.
There is no dialogue during either of those parts, which I think makes the submarine part more difficult, because it'd be one thing if he had like a radio and was talking back to the team somewhere else, but because he's so far down in the sub, it's just him, so it's almost like a silent film, and you just got to kind of sit there and absorb it. And yeah, it just kind of it goes on too long, unfortunately.
Yeah, Ethan Hunt doesn't have anybody to outwit down there. He can't beat somebody to the conclusion right before they do and be like, aha, now you see what I already know. Like he's just down there doing the work. But I liked it. I'm pro subs here. I think it's a good time. And I also do like the kind of B plot. There's a couple B and C plots here, but the B plot with like his team in the meantime, Simon Pegg kind of is placed in charge briefly. That's pretty good, and you do get a callback with an old character. It's in the trailer that got really funny when it's finally revealed that he's like this guy that I think most people would recognize. There was this one dad in my audience who goes, "Oh," like real loud, and they figure it out. It's so funny, great laugh. But then you get to something much more practical, which is Tom Cruise getting thrown around in a plane. That stuff, like you said, also not a lot of dialogue. I liked it more than I thought I would. Like I already thought it'd be fine from the trailer, but like they managed to really, really put on something stellar. A little hokey for the finish. Like Dead Reckoning did a train. You're like, sick. This movie would be so cool if I lived in 1935, dog. This would be awesome. Like, and the biplane thing kind of has a similar. I'm like, boy, if I was one of the Wright brothers, this would hit so good. But no, all kidding aside, it is genuinely awesome how good that stuff looks. Like crazy geography of the scene, planes like flying back and forth, a little bit of dogfighting. Like there's some real good stuff in there. Real great action.
Yeah, maybe I've just seen too many of these, but I think because like you pretty much know that Ethan Hunt is gonna, and Tom Cruise like is still alive, so he survived the stunt. So there's a little bit of a lack of danger, even though it's incredibly dangerous, that a lot of the other stunts in the previous films kind of keep a little bit. So there's a little bit lack of tension for whatever reason. Also, there's other really complicated stuff going on at the same time. Like while he's on the plane, there's a whole complicated thing about there's a bomb that's going to go off that has to be disarmed. At the same time, 3 other people have to do other things and coordinate and talk and get this information, and it's head twirling, and that happens several times through the movie, and that's a staple of these films in general. But it's a lot, and all that to say, a lot of this feels like they just thought up a bunch of Mission Impossible bits, and they're like, let's just do all of them. I got an idea for a submarine thing. Let's do that. I got some helicopter stuff. And a lot of this weirdly feels like U.S. military propaganda. I feel like I'm watching Top Gun for a lot of it. Like I think there's a couple of Top Gun callbacks, and I was like, they've never really had that in these movies, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, in order for it to escalate to a global threat level, like the world is going to end if Ethan can't do this, ultimately you have to start working with global powers. And that involves like direct engagement with the US government, president, and military in a way that these other movies kind of don't. Because typically it's a rogue nation situation. Like, he's a rogue agent and like he's doing his own thing and he still is here, but like he's not meeting the freaking president. Like that we're not quite going there, right? Like the CIA's figuring Ethan Hunt out. Oh, they'll get somebody. They got some new supervisor who's going to tell them what to do this time. But now this one is much larger. Outside of that lack of danger, which is tragically laughable in the submarine sequence, because you know the movie's got another hour to go, so it's like, come on, like that's one of those things that like people are bored, like moving along. Outside of that, I was gonna say also lacking in cool spy gear. We were talking about this right before we started recording. I miss the spy gear stuff, and a lot of that's in Dead Reckoning, and I think that got lost here because it's a two-parter, and they kind of had to split it. You get so much action exposition that you don't get a lot of like rad spy gear. I don't want to give any of it away. A good example, like the pull-off masks. I guess I thought there'd be like one more than there was in here. I don't want to give anything away, but yeah, a little lean on that because it just had to pick its spots. Like we're gonna do exposition, we're gonna wrap the series up, we're gonna do a bit of lore, and then we're going to do great action, of course. Like it's gotta hold those down. You don't get a lot of time for the tomfoolery, I suppose.
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed. It's simultaneously the most and least Mission Impossible movie ever. We're missing all the spycraft, tradecraft, cloak and dagger stuff. Like it's a spy movie, and there's not really much spying, and that's usually where they have to impersonate someone else, or they got to get information from this guy, or they got to break into this vault and steal this information, and all that kind of cloak and dagger stuff is missing. All the like gadget stuff, which is similar to the James Bond franchise, where you'll have a couple of new gadgets in every movie. We don't really get that. It's just an action movie this second half because it's very straightforward. There's not, again, we're missing all the spycraft stuff.
I worry before we wrap this up that if anybody is still watching on YouTube that hasn't clicked away yet, they're going to think that we're sour on this. They're going to be like, well, obviously y'all hated it. You said the acting's not that good and it's way front loaded with junk and the danger's not that dangerous. And that's not true. I like Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. So I want to say that I like it because, it's got good action and it's a lot of fun. And it does do really feel like puts a good cap on the franchise, right? A little bit of icing on that cake. Like, I enjoy what's here. What do you think, Andy? Like you ultimately you don't dislike this movie, right?
No, as a fan of the series, I liked what we got in the end. Like I said, it's a little bit too long. I would probably on rewatch I would start it later in the film. Like it's almost 3 hours, so you could start in like 45 minutes in and be fine. It's a good send off for our characters. It in some ways it feels like it could continue because we get some new members. Like we meet exciting characters like Tramell Tillman, Hannah Waddingham. Like it looks like these characters are being set up to be like new faces of the Mission Impossible series, and so we could potentially move along with them. Pom Klementieff as well. There's a really funny line where someone asks her if she knows first aid, and she's like, "I'm an assassin. I do the opposite of first aid." Like.
Yeah, Klementieff and Tramell Tillman, I think, are my favorite performances in the movie. Like, and both of them don't get enough time, and it's just because it's got so much to do, And like, what are you going to do? You can't pick your spots early. It's all right. We're only critical because there's so much on the line. Good God, this is the 8th one of these, and it's a big deal, and it's obviously making a lot of money. So with that, final recommendations. Andy, would you recommend Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning?
Definitely recommend it for fans of the Mission Impossible series and fans of action movies. Like I said, there's a little bit too much talking and exposition in the beginning, but once it gets going about 80-90 minutes in, then it's a good time. It's lacking some of the, like I said, spycrafty stuff that we get in a lot of these movies, but that's primarily in the first one. It's doing really well with audiences. It'll be interesting to see where this goes in the future, if they reboot it, if Tom Cruise does another one. Anyways, we'll see. But I'd say recommend for the fans.
Yeah, I think I would say recommend as well. Fans, action movie heads, filmmakers, and fathers everywhere, go see Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. It's a great time. It's a lot of fun. Just remember, if you're watching it, you kind of got to hit the bathroom in that first hour. Go. You're not going to miss a whole lot. They could have cut that fat real lean, in my opinion, but what do I know? I haven't been with the franchise as long as the rest of y'all have. And with that, we got to get to a little bit more news. We covered a bit of Cannes Film Festival last episode, and this week we're picking up for the rest of it. It's a 2-week event. Thank God Andy's put together a very, very concise outline for us.